Hello everybody and welcome. This is my 2010 Ford Focus Mark II facelift, 1.6 petrol. I've owned this car for 3.5 years and during this time I've done 35,000 of trouble-free miles. It has been the perfect daily driver. It has been cheap to maintain in terms of parts and labor. Easy to work on because I've done most of the labor myself. It also has been good on fuel and also cheap on insurance. So, what's it like to own a Ford Focus Mark II petrol? The Ford Focus Mark II was launched back in 2004 to replace the revolutionary Mark I that was launched 25 years ago. Wow, that's been a long time. And the Mark I was a groundbreaking car which was very different from the rest of the competition. And the Mark II was to live up on from that legacy. They didn't want to change on what it was, a very good recipe, but they picked up everything that the Mark I had and then tried to improve every single little bit. And here it is. Then in 2008, it went through a minor facelift, small changes in the front, also a little bit in the back, a few other bits as well, change of equipment levels and so on and so on, but it still remained a very good car and it's still a very popular choice on the second-hand car market. Inside, the Mark II Focus is a nice place to be. The instrument panel is easy to read and nicely laid out. The controls are nicely damped and easy to reach with your fingers. Same with the heated controls, all very easy to use and intuitive. Some models even have an armrest with an extra compartment and, of course, a cup holder. Although some drivers do say that the cup holder on the first generation of the Mark II is actually much better compared to this one. But plenty of storage and also a nicely sized glove box where you can put a lot of things, including your latest edition of Classic Car Buyer featuring the new deputy editor Joe Miller. Please do buy it. And two more cup holders on that area as well, a place for the pen and also the hidden place for the auxiliary cable, which is located right there. Plenty of regulation on the seats, front, backwards, height as well. Nice, comfortable seats, as you can expect from a car that is basically built to be a daily driver. And you actually have a very good all-round visibility. Although on the cars with a privacy window like this one, in the dark is a little bit difficult, especially because the reverse light is pointing to the curb rather to the actual back of the car, and that hinders a little bit the visibility. In all, a nice setup. All cars come with front and side airbags, and this car during this time actually during its around 2004 when they first did the Euro NCAP tests, it reached 5 stars of crash safety, which is very good indeed. But one of my favorite features on Fords in general is this, the heated front screen. You will find it on all Z-Tech trim models of the Mark II facelift, but on the pre-facelift cars you will find it on the Z-Tech Climate. In all, it's actually a very nicely equipped car that does everything for your daily needs. At the back is not too shabby either. For example, this seat is actually quite far back and you have plenty of knee space for 2 adults. The 3 adults do sit nicely at the back. There's actually plenty of headroom. I'm not really short person, but I'm not exactly tall. 5'10", 5'10", I don't know. And you have actually plenty of headroom, plenty of knee space. But then for longer trips, 3 adults at the back can be a little bit of an issue. Also, you will notice here the ISOFIX. Please bear in mind that it was not compulsory for cars at the time to have ISOFIX brackets. It was an optional extra. Therefore, many cars will not have them. But you can buy a bracket from Ford for less than £20 and put it on yourself. I actually have a video about it. and then you can put isofix for your little bother. The boot is very practical as well, plenty of space, and you can actually remove and fold the seats flat very easily. First the base, and of course at the press of the button, there you go. I can't do the other one because of the isofix, of course, but again, very practical. I actually managed to fit probably about 5 or 6 full-size wooden pallets in here, so it is very practical. One thing that I think that Ford should have not carried over from the Mark I was the bonnet lock mechanism, which keeps failing to everyone. So you just flip the logo, twists, and then you can find here the engine. For the Mark II, Ford had several choices of engine. There was the 1.4, the 1.6 with 100 horsepower, the 1.6 with the variable valve timing with 115 horsepower. Then you had the 1.8 and then the 2-liter. For the diesels, there was two. There was one 1.6 Econetic, 1.6 TDCi, 1.8, and also 2-liter TDCi. The 1.6 petrol, 100 horsepower, was probably one of the best sellers for the range. This engine is known for being very reliable, although some have been have criticized it because it doesn't have a lot of power and the fuel consumption isn't great. But in my personal experience, I haven't found that. In fact, I find the car has the adequate power for the type of task it is designed for, to be a daily driver, and fuel consumption. I get around 40 miles to the gallon on my daily commute, which is about a mix of dual carriageway, country lanes, and a little bit of town traffic. Just like any other car, no car is perfect, and the Ford Focus has its own faults. So I'm going to go through the common faults you can find on a Focus Mark II. The interior of the car is actually quite hard wearing, but like everything else, some brittle plastics might go. Things like the center console will start to fade, but that's just all to do with wear and tear. But inside, the cluster is prone to problems. So if you notice some starting problems or if the needle starts to flicker and so on, it's the cluster that needs to be repaired. There are a few specialists that you can find online that can repair your cluster, and then it will be good to go for several thousand miles. The Focus is also prone to have a leaky boot. If you find that there's condensation inside the car and also the bottom of the spare wheel with some water, there's very likelihood that the water is leaking from several places. It could be from behind the bumper or even under the rear lights. All can be easily done. Luckily, my car hasn't got any leaks, but who knows, it might happen in the future. But it will definitely happen at some point. The Ford engines are actually fairly reliable, but this one is known for being the pick of the bunch. The 1.6 petrol 100 horsepower is known for its reliability and durability, very easy to maintain, although it's not really known for its power and fuel economy. The 1.8 and 2-liter petrol models are more powerful, with just a little bit more of fuel consumption, but they do have a tendency for a higher oil consumption when they are a bit worn, and in particular the piston rings can go, and that's pretty much a gone engine. The coil packs also can fail, which you will notice with a misfire, and also there's a bit of a tendency for the water from the washer fluid to accumulate in here and ruin the coil packs. So you have to pay attention to that. Make sure there's no water accumulated here on the top of the engine. The diesel engines are actually fairly robust, but what lets them down it's things such as the EGR, the DPF, and the turbos. So unless you do 12 or 15,000 miles a year, there's no point getting a diesel, because although you get a good fuel economy, at the end of the day, with maintenance costs and so on, it doesn't make any financial sense. So if you do 12 or 15,000 miles or more a year, then it's a good idea to get a diesel car. But at the end of the day, they are fairly robust, and they should last for several thousand, hundreds of thousand miles, in fact. Maintenance intervals, at least for the 1.6 petrol, it is 12,000 miles or every single year. Personally, I do every 6 months or so, or every 6,000 miles. It's cheap enough and it doesn't do any harm. So it actually does very well for the engine. For the TI VCT engine, you have to be extra careful because it has some electronic actuators. You cannot skimp on maintenance on that engine at all. You have to make sure that you do the oil changes and it's serviced as per the schedule, or even earlier than that, to keep the engine healthy. There are two electronic actuators which can fail, and they are not cheap to replace. Apart from the 1.8 petrol and the 2-liter as well, which are chain driven, the other engines are belt driven, which needs to be replaced at around 100,000 miles or every 10 years. Now that the youngest Focus Mark II, the facelift, was I think back 2011, all of those cars should have had their timing belts replaced. So if you find a car and there's no evidence of having a timing belt replaced, please do it so. Try to negotiate it down on the price. And as soon as you get it, just like what I did when I got this car, have the timing belt replaced. And of course, there's this bloody thing, the bonnet lock mechanism, which will definitely fail. Mine is already a replacement one. Don't bother go with the 4-1s. Get one from eBay. They last just as long or even longer. The only annoying thing, you needed to have a separate key in order to open the bonnet. But there is a kit sold by a handful of companies which uses the Mark IV Mondeo latch mechanism, and you can get rid of the lock in here and have a pull handle inside the car. I think I'm going to do that at some point and do a video about it. Of course, there is rust, and Ford and the rust are two things that go quite well hand in hand. And the Focus is no exception. Although having a better rust protection compared to the Mark I, it can still rust quite badly, especially on the front and the rear subframes. You will find many cars with a lot of corrosion underneath. But the best thing to prevent more rust from forming is to wash the car very well, especially in the winter, with the salt on the roads that accumulates and then spreads all underneath the car. The wings do rust quite well, actually. If not treated, the rust will spread quite quickly. But these are bolt-on panels, and you can easily replace these without having to do a rust repair. And of course, modifications and enhancements you can do to your car. The Focus, being a very popular car and made in huge quantities, of course, is going to attract a lot of enthusiasts. And the options to modify and enhance your car are endless. For example, one of the things that I've done in terms of visual enhancement was to put the spoiler of the Z-Tech S. And I've replaced the normal wing mirror indicators with the dynamic ones, and I also replaced the washer jets with the ones that equip the Mark III, because these give a much better spray pattern, like a mist, which washes the window much better. You can also do several interior enhancements, for example, changing the seats and some of the interior trim, like, for example, the center console. Mine was the Z-Tech 1, which was faded and degraded, and I replaced the one from the titanium, which is much smarter and much nicer. Also, I have upgraded the head unit with one with DAB+, and you can have other ones which also have Android Auto and CarPlay. And last but not the least, the interior lighting, which on the normal ZTEC cars is actually quite poor, and I've installed the ones from the titanium models. Other visual enhancements you can do is, for example, to put the kit from the ST or even the ZTEC S, basically front, side and rear skirts that give a better visual enhancement, bigger wheels. And if you want something a little bit more sporty, you can add the front end from the RS, but that needs a little bit more of modification. You can also change the grills, the top and the bottom, with the ones that will equip the ST or even the ZTEC S. And the possibilities are endless. There's so much available on the market that you are actually spoiled for choice. So what about the other running costs? Insurance, for example. A bloke like myself on my mid-40s, in an office job, living in a quiet location, plenty of no-claim bonus and doing over 10,000 miles a year, I do pay less than £300 a year. These are December 2023 prices. I know the insurance premiums have gone up a lot recently, but that's how much I am being quoted at the moment. But of course, everyone's circumstances are different, and of course, the prices may vary. Road tax for this car is less than £300 a year, but some diesels, because of their lower CO2 bracket, they do pay a bit less, but expect to pay more for the ST and RS models, obviously. In terms of fuel, the 1.6 petrol that I've got, I do roughly around 40 miles to the gallon, and that's on my daily commute, mix of dual carriageway, country lanes, and a little bit of town traffic. I can't complain with that. There's a lot of drivers that complain that they get much lower figures, but I don't know. I really don't have the answer to that. And this is by using E10 fuel. I know it's been called the devil's fuel by many drivers, not just over the Focus, but every car brand known. But I'm quite happy with it, and I'll keep on using it. Never had any issues on just over 2 years of using it. And of course, there are other costs, servicing costs. Oil and filter change in this car, you can do it for less than £40 yourself. Don't pay a garage to do it, just do it at home. Very simple and easy to do. The other thing that this car has a tendency to eat is the lower suspension arms. I think my car is already on its third set, because when I went to replace these ones 2 years ago, they already were the replacement ones. So, but then again, easy job to work. The suspension components are relatively easy to replace. Shock absorbers at the back, very easy, as well as the anti-roll bar links. But the rear subframe is a little bit trickier. So, and that's a kind of job that I haven't done yet. But all the front suspension on my car has been fully replaced, apart from the anti-roll bar bushes. I need to find a way to do that. Engine mounts, of course, they go. There's 3 of them. One that connects to the gearbox, one just on the left-hand side of the engine, and the one under the battery. Then again, not hard jobs to do. You can do them yourself. This is probably one of the last DIY-friendly daily hatchbacks, and if it's been a very good car for me, it will also be very good for you. It's a car that I recommend to anyone. Even as the first car, as 1.6, the premiums are not actually really that high, and it's reliable, and more important these days, it's actually ULEZ compliant. All of the petrol Ford Focuses are ULEZ compliant. Unfortunately, the diesels are not. So another reason to get a 1.6 petrol Ford Focus Mark II. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions and so on, please do feel free to ask. I hope I covered most of the things about what it's like to own this car. Probably there will be a few bits that I've missed, so I do apologize for that. So again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on next video. Take care.